This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV, it's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
Saturday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I'm really excited about today's guest, Damon Lembi, and he's coming from the Bay Area, and he is an entrepreneur himself, and he is the CEO of Learnit. He's also a 2 times best-selling author. He's also got a podcast called the Learn It All podcast. He's also a former collegiate baseball player, so that's really interesting, and I'm really happy to have him on and discuss his work, and happy to dive into the conversations. Damon, welcome.
Chris, it's great to be here. It's an honor to be on your show, so thank you.
Yeah. What were you doing before Learnit, and how did you come to start Learnit, and what are you doing now?
Great questions. And I want to start with, I didn't start Learnit. A lot of people think that I did. We're heading into our 30th year in June. My father originally came up with the idea, so he deserves the credit. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2010. My story is, I'll start with, I always wanted to be a baseball player. I went all in. It worked out pretty well for me. I was a high school All-American, got an opportunity to either go the minor league route or the professional route. I got drafted by the Atlanta Braves too. My parents were awesome. They said, this is your life. You choose what direction you want to go. I went the college route. I thought our coach had a great moonshot vision, which was really one of my first leadership things I learned. He said, hey, we're going to work together. We're going to get a great team, and we're going to compete and win the College World Series. And Pepperdine, a small school of 2,500 people going up against, like where you're at, UT, University of Texas, it's a difficult thing to do. Long story short, I got hurt. I left Pepperdine. That year, they won the College World Series. So it shows you can have a moonshot dream and make it work. I ended up playing at Arizona State University, had a great career there, hit a home run in the World Series. My wife likes to say that's my glory days. Waiting to get drafted again at 21, almost 22. I didn't get drafted. My baseball career came to an end and went through an identity crisis. So what do? I don't know if my skills are even transferable. Fortunately for me, I came from a family that had several businesses. We were a large real estate owner in San Francisco, hotels and apartment buildings, and a mortgage company, savings and loan. But I was intimidated. I didn't know if any of my skills were transferable. My dad was an entrepreneur. This is the mid 90s. And he said, he took a computer class one day. He hated it at like CompUSA. He said, there's got to be a better way to do this. That's where he came up with the idea for Learnit. And I started there in June of 95 as a receptionist. And here we are 30 years later. I've been the CEO for the last 25 years, and it's been a pretty fun journey. And that's pretty much my story.
Yeah. Yeah, and fascinating is to kick it off. When people come to Learnit, it looks like it's a learning platform. And what is the number one pain point or frustration or thing they're trying to achieve by going on there? Is it higher ed? Again, talk about that.
Thanks for bringing it up. I should have mentioned it. So Learnit is a live learning platform, which means we do mostly instructor-led training, and customers turn to us. It's all B2B. So customers turn to us when they're promoting somebody from an individual contributor to a new manager, and it's a completely different skill set. We teach them those types of skills. Or if a company acquires a company and they want to integrate people into their organization and they want to have a feedback model or better communication, or frankly, if an organization is struggling with morale and having a hard time retaining top employees, they invest in their team, and we help them build a training and development program. And that's what we do. And so we work with organizations of all sizes. Typically, our target customers are from 500 employees to maybe a couple thousand. And we do all those skills like emotional intelligence, coaching, active listening. We also, pretty popular these days, I'm sure you could guess, is how to adopt AI in your organization. So it's not how to make prompts really, but it's like, how do you get buy-in from leadership and everybody else? And then we still do classes on Copilot, Microsoft Excel, and all of those type of hard skills.
Interesting. Yeah. And I was just going to ask you because I'm a fond supporter of Khan Academy. I know Sal Khan lives out in the
Great company.
Yeah, it's and so it's like you have a great culture and a great organization, and you didn't always start out there. So how do you build a learning culture within an organization?
I think it all starts to build a learning culture. It all starts at the top. Leadership has to be involved and they have to be bought in. And when I call it a learning culture, it's not necessarily just formal learning programs. It's also a culture where you bring people in and you give them a psychologically safe space to try things and make mistakes, get feedback and learn from it. So that's one of the main ways that you build a learning culture, is giving people the opportunity to try things. Also, of course, I'm a big believer in implementing a training program. And to implement a great training program, you got to give people time and space to be able to do training. And yeah, so that's basically how it goes. Giving people the opportunity to try things, giving them delegating responsibilities to them so that they have a learning opportunity to grow, and going from there.
Yeah. The other thing that Learnit is that you have a learn it all versus a know it all. And what are 5 traits that distinguish learn it all from know it all?
So I wrote a book in April 2023 called The Learn It All Leader, and it's about my experience going from sports to the business world. And I didn't go to Harvard or Harvard Business School or anything like that. I went to Arizona State, and nothing wrong with Arizona State. So I knew that if I was going to be successful, I really had to have a learning mentality. I was going to have to pick up real world skills, surround myself with smart people, and learn. And it's paid off for me. Start off with a know-it-all. A know-it-all is somebody who you have a conversation with them. It's either their way or the highway. Their eyes glaze over when you're talking to them, and they're very set in their ways. On the flip side is a learn-it-all, somebody who's open to learning. And to answer your question, I believe that the 5 skills that make a great leader, a learn-it-all leader, is humility. You got to be okay with saying, hey, I don't have an answer. Help me out here. I believe integrity. It's integrity. Say what you're going to say. Don't overpromise, underproduce. So it's really important to lead with integrity. I think you have to have the courage to make tough decisions, right? As a leader, sometimes your decisions, even in a small business, are tough. Sometimes people aren't the right fits for your organization, and you need to look out for the betterment of the team. Sometimes of sunken costs. Maybe you've invested a couple $100,000 in a new system. It doesn't work. You have to have the courage to move on without it. I also think that accountability is incredibly important. Having ownership, taking ownership for what is most important, is very important, instead of having a victim mentality. And finally, but probably the most important, is being curious. I think Learn It All leaders are always curious. They're always looking at things like, okay, how could I do this differently? Are there other ways we can do this? How could I leverage AI to enhance what we're doing? So you're always looking for a way to get better, surrounding yourself with other people who have strengths that maybe are different from you, and being curious about how you can leverage those strengths to take both yourself and your organization to next level.
Yeah. And I'm talking from the outset, what I really love about you is when you're very curious and you're asking questions, trying to learn more. Some guests are just, like I said, just they come from very established, and it's just so. The next question I have for you is, because there's a lot of athletes turned entrepreneurs. There's Joe Montana out there and doing different things. How does being an outsider, how has that helped you? Because you talked about your background and it forced you to see things differently. What advice do you have for people that are in similar situations?
I love that you bring up Joe Montana, because Joe Montana was our corporate sponsor in the late 80s for our savings and loan. And he actually, true story, came to our Christmas dinner back in, I think, 1990, and was my idol. Outside of my dad, Joe Montana was absolutely my idol. I had the most respect for him, and he's a great human being. To answer your question, it's kind of like I talked about a little bit already. Athletes that, careers end, even if it's in high school, I call it the athletic education. There's so many great things that you learn playing sports. And that's why I'm always out speaking to parents and the people I work with to get your kids involved in sports. And those skills that I was questioning whether they're even transferable are skills like discipline, collaboration, teamwork, perseverance. On baseball, for instance, if you fail 7 out of 10 times, you're a superstar. So there's all these different skills that you learn. And I work with a lot of athletes who their career ended like mine and they're like stuck for a while. I don't even know if I can transfer what I'm doing into the real world. And the truth of the matter is that it's a great starting point for somebody who's going from sports into the business world.
Yeah. And a lot of athletes, they make some of the greatest entrepreneurs and just amazing. You've seen so many. And for a lot of doctors, they suffer from the same thing as they invested so much time and energy, and then they get into the hospitals and they're like, this is not what I signed up for. And they're stuck. And then they go through this identity crisis. You talk about this idea of imposter syndrome and how you conquered it, and you developed a 4-step strategy for leaders.
Yeah. And going back to what you're saying about doctors, there's the book, David Epstein's the author. I think it's called The Generalist. I can't remember, but there's a story in there exactly that. Somebody who grew up to be a doctor because that's what their father was. And they found out they were absolutely miserable doing it. And it took them a while and to actually shift and pivot career. But once they did, they were super happy. I think whether you're an athlete or not, or whatever career you're in, it's okay to pivot. And the skills that you had, you can transfer over. So I think just to reiterate that. Now, to answer your question, I think we all deal with imposter syndrome, all of us. If you don't want to admit it, that's fine. You're either fooling yourself or maybe even a sociopath. The first time I dealt with imposter syndrome really was when I got to college as a 17-year-old kid, and everybody was as good as me. And it was like, do I even belong here anymore? And I struggled. Like I said, Pepperdine ended up leaving, got to Arizona State. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I built this 4-step framework that I use for overcome imposter syndrome to make the Arizona State baseball team. And it was just step number one is label your fear. So if you're promoted into a new manager role and you're worried, like, do I even belong here? What's the worst thing that could happen? I call it purposeful awfulizing. Look at it a year in advance. And if you completely fall on your face, what's the worst thing that could happen? Maybe you lose your job, maybe you get demoted, but that's something you could overcome. It's not going to necessarily bankrupt you. It's not going to cost you your life. So label your fear. And once you realize it's something you can overcome, then that should relieve some of that anxiety. Number 2 is work hard. Sounds simple, but there's no hacks for hard work. There just really isn't. I'm not saying you got to work 12 to 14 hours a day, but when you're working, put your full effort into it, leverage other people who can help you. Step number 3 is deliberate focus. Okay, so you're working hard, but make sure you're working hard on the right thing. In baseball, for me, I struggled hitting curveballs, so I had the coach throw me 1,000 curveballs before practice every day. I just worked on that. When I was starting to do keynote speeches, I really struggled on my closing. So I would just practice that over and over until it got better, at least a little better. Then I'd move on to something else and really focus and be deliberate on it, because it's easy to procrastinate when something's hard. And then the last step is when you step into a batter's box or you get up to do a keynote speech or whatever you're doing, it's time to learn and let go, right? Stop thinking about the technique. Just go out there, be confident in yourself that you've put in the effort, you put in the work, and just give it your best. You might knock it out of the park. You might fall flat on your face. But at the end of the day, it's a learning opportunity for you so you can learn and grow. And I also think for all you listeners out there, so many people pass up great opportunities because of imposter syndrome or maybe even self-doubt. And so give yourself a little bit of credit. Give yourself a pat on the back that you tried something, you went for it, because a lot of people don't. So that's really my 4 steps. It's labeling your fear, working hard, deliberate practice, and most importantly, learn and let go.
Touching upon pivot and career pivots, one thing that was emphasized is to me by a mentor was he was saying that you need to focus and go all in and on that single thing. And for people that are afraid of getting their career derailed, for a doctor, like you get with the wrong employer, or you just realize that it's not for you, or even athletes, you can get injured. Is it better to, is that a word advice, go all in and really dedicate yourself versus have something on the backup? Just what are your thoughts?
I think maybe you want to do a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to go out on your own and throw up your own shingle and be your own dentist practice or a financial advisor, if you're going to go out on your own, you have to go all in and do it, because being an entrepreneur, I'm sure, is not easy. It's not a linear path. You have ups and downs. I interviewed this woman yesterday, and she was looking at leaving her job of being an advertising sale for a news, like a radio station, and coming to work at Learnit and doing sales. And she's like, what happens if I fail? What happens if I fail and I don't make it? And I said, first of all, I can't see that happening with you, especially if you put in the hard work and do your best. But you're always going to be able to fall back on something, the success you've had, your previous wins, and your network. And so I think you should go all in. But whether you're a doctor or a financial planner or an entrepreneur, I also think it's critical these days that you build your own personal brand. Get out. You and I talked about this a little bit, right? Get out and get on podcasts. You'll find something to talk about, but also be active on LinkedIn. Start becoming your own thought leader on LinkedIn, because that matters. You could build your network up that way. So if things don't happen to work out, you can always tap into your network. And so be proactive with that. That's my answer to whether or not you should go all in or have a backup.
Yeah. We have around 5 minutes remaining, and lead with, what are the key skills leaders need to develop? You talk about great leaders aren't born or made, they're in the making. And then also, because we have a new disruptive technology with artificial intelligence, and how leaders should be thinking about it and positioning themselves for the future.
Whether you're a doctor or the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, you're going to really miss the boat if you don't roll up your sleeves and get involved with AI. That's where the future is. I was just talking to a gentleman who's going to be on my show coming up, who sold his company to Autodesk, and now he's got another company called DataGrid, which is all AI based. And we were just talking about what the future is going to look like in 5 years, and what's going to happen to the individuals and organizations who don't buy into it and get involved. And my advice is just start simple. If you start with ChatGPT, have it help you write better emails, but get curious and learn how to leverage it. There's so much more than just using it as a tool. I think you could use it as a thought partner. I use AI all the time to interview me, and it really helps me with decision making and everything. You have to get involved with it. And I like what you mentioned about, my tagline is, great leaders aren't born or made, they're always in the making. And what I mean by that is there's always room to grow and evolve, no matter how far up you go in an organization or how successful you are. And I've found, and I'm sure you have on your show, the best leaders I know are constantly learning and growing. And there's no better area in the business world right now to grow in than AI. And especially if you're a small shop with a couple of people, learning how to leverage AI, whether it's for marketing or whatever it is, it can really save you a lot of money and help get things done much quicker and much better.
Yeah, I love that. How can people connect with you and learn from you and check out Learnit?
So what I would say is connect with me on LinkedIn, Damon Lembi on LinkedIn. Check out my podcast, the Learn It All podcast. And also, if you go to my website, learnit.com, and you find a class that you want, that you're interested in, whether it's coaching your team or emotional intelligence or how to use AI, send me a note on LinkedIn and I'll send you a free coupon for a $250 class. Just let me know you saw me on Financial Freedom Show.
Nice. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I love your approach. And I always love talking to entrepreneurs, and keep up the great work.
Thanks. I had a great time talking to you.